Marriage is a beautiful union, but what happens when forever turns into a fair one? For many couples, the biggest question isn't about love lost, but property shared. Are you sure you know who really owns the roof over your head? Stick around because in today's video we are unpacking how your marriage regime determines property divisions during divorce. Whether it's a civil marriage, a customary union, or a civil union, knowing your rights could save you from surprises. More than half of marriages in South Africa ends in divorce courts. In most cases, an immovable property, a house, a flat, or a farm is involved. For most South African, a property is the biggest investments they will ever make and therefore plays a big role in divorce settlement discussions. How assets including property are divided during a divorce depends on a marriage regime or the type of marital contract the couple registered when they were married. Right? So that's why we need to start with the basics. South Africa recognizes three main types of marriages, right? It's a civil marriages, right? So these are the most common and exclusively between a man and a woman. There's also number two, customary marriages, which is rooted in African traditions, and these follow indigenous customary law. And the third one is the civil unions. These allow same-sex couples to enjoy the same rights as civil marriages, right? Whether that is right or wrong, that is not the point of today's video. But here's the kicker. Regardless of how you're married, the property regime you choose when you're tying the knot dictates what happens to your assets during divorce. Now let's go into the nitty-gritty of who owns what in your marriage. This depends on your marriage setup, right? So the first thing is, are you married in community of property? Because if you're married in community of property, this is the default if you didn't sign any anti-nuptial contracts. It means all assets and debts are shared equally, right? You and your spouse each own half of the property and is always registered in both your names, right? So if you divorce, you are entitled to 50% of the property or of the proceeds if the property is sold, right? It sounds familiar, right? But remember, this setup also merges your liability. Your spouse's debt is now your debt, right? If your spouse goes and buy a Lamborghini and they buy it with debt, it means that amount that they owe it also the debt that you are responsible for. So the second type of marriage setup is out of community of property with no accrual. Here, what is yours and what your spouse is theirs. If the property is in your spouse's name, you are not automatically entitled to any portion of it. In fact, you could face eviction or see the property sold with no share of the proceeds coming your way. This is why understanding the title deed and ownership structure is crucial, and don't assume anything. Now let's go to the third structure, which is married out of community of property with accrual, right? This system is small nuances, right? It works like this. So what you brought into the marriage is yours, right? Any assets or wealth that is built together during the marriage is split upon equally when during the divorce, right? For the property, if your spouse brought it and it's appreciated in value, you are only entitled to half the growth in value and not the property itself. That is very much important for you to understand, right? But here's an example for me to just break it down further so that it's more understandable, right? If let's say a property is bought for 1 million, right, and it's now worth 2 million, right? The 1 million difference, it is what gets split, right? However, don't forget to factor in things like the bond, the taxes, and the timing. Selling may not always be the straightforward way, right? So it's very much important to understand. But in addition here, I want to talk about properties that are in trust, because some people uses trust to hide properties, right? Now, what about the property that is held in trust, right? In most cases, a trustee isn't the true owner of the property. It's held for the benefit of others like beneficiaries and so forth, right? But the South African court have clamped down as shams trust, right? Where people try to hide assets during divorce. If a trust is abused, the court will investigate, right? So who controls the trust property? When was the trust created? Was the trust set up to avoid sharing assets? So while the trust can protect assets, they are not a full proof if they're misused. So if you are putting a property in a trust, it needs to be like maybe in existence for over a long period of time, right? It's not just something recent that is just being done now to protect the assets, right? From being shared with the other party, which people are of course doing it, because people will always find a way. They will always make a way. So here's where things get messy. If you are married in community of property, the divorce process usually involves a settlement agreement, right? So this agreement will outline how assets like your house will be divided. You will need to update the title deed through the Deeds Registrars Act to reflect the new ownership, right? However, many divorces don't follow a normal course, right? If the ownership is unclear, things can turn into a hostile legal battle with lawyers in the High Court, right? Even in ANC with accrual, you are not automatically entitled to the half of the property. Your share depends on the increase in value of the marital estate. So before things spiral into chaos, review your antenuptial contract and know exactly where you stand. So the main reason why divorces are not following the normal course is mainly because people are emotional during this process. And you can understand, right? These are people that have loved each other for many, many years, right? Marriage and property go hand in hand, right? But divorce can entangle them in complicated ways. The key takeaways: always know your rights. Don't assume you own something just because you live there. What do you think? Did any of these surprise you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, make sure you like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need it. And as always, your host, the big elephant, Ndokuria Manenji. Cheers. I will see you on the next one.